Good evening, everybody. Welcome to episode 9 of We Are Listening. I'm SK Shlomo, and this is my live stream series that I do every month as a space to talk about mental health. It's been an absolute joy doing this. I've been doing it every month since last summer, and just have a safe space where I can talk with friends and colleagues and other people of interest about journeys, about mental health, about stories, and also getting to know you guys. The audience has just been incredible. So thank you everyone who's been part of this so far, who sent us messages, sent us stories and connected. We record this in advance, but we are online right now. So if you have any comments, you type them there, we will be replying to them straight away. And I would like to introduce you to my guests for this month. We have Jonny and Neil, who I'm very excited to meet. Neil Laybourne and Jonny Benjamin, MBE, for his services for mental health. And you guys, I'm really excited to have you because, as I was just saying to you just before we came online, like so far in this series, I've been feeling like a bit of an outsider in the world of mental health, like being a musician who wanted to start talking about it and wanted to start a conversation. And then throughout that process, I've started to meet more and more people who are kind of already in that world and well versed in it and kind of making leaps and bounds in that world. So I approached these guys after I went to their conference. You guys have got your conference, haven't you? This Can Happen, which I attended, and it was amazing. It was like hundreds and hundreds of people from businesses all talking about how they can tackle mental health or raise awareness or help employees, and I felt like it was a really inspiring day, and that's why I approached you. So guys, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having us. Thank you.
How are you doing?
Great. Yeah, it's a full-on day today. Lots of activity together. We just came from talking to a school. Actually, it was quite a big day because it was the school where Jonny went to. And in our talks that we give around mental health, I always listen to Jonny talk about JFS. And so I got to go there today. So that was that was good. Yeah, that was good.
Yeah, that's cool. And so I feel like your story is always really fascinating in terms of like how you guys met. I heard about you guys from my therapist. She told me about these amazing guys because I was trying to find charities to support when I did my album crowdfunding campaign, and she was like, have you heard of these guys? So do you want to tell it in your words, like how you guys kind of met and then the whole story behind Stranger on the Bridge and all of this?
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. So we met 10 years ago, yeah. 11 years ago now. Well, 11 years ago. So I was, when I was 20, I was diagnosed with something called schizoaffective disorder. It's a combination of schizophrenia and bipolar. And I was really unwell at the time. I've been unwell for a while, but that's the first time I went into hospital, into a psychiatric hospital. And I don't know, I gave up in the hospital. The hospital was just, there was like this sense of just hopelessness in the hospital. No one around me was getting any better, and I just got worse in this hospital. And so a month into my stay there, I don't know, something just kind of in my head just snapped. Like one night, something just kind of went, I can't do this anymore. And the only way out was to end my life. There was no other way out because it was just it felt like a nightmare. And there was only one way out of the nightmare, really. And so I made a plan to run away from the hospital and to go to this bridge, and I did the next day. So this was now the beginning of 2008. I ran away that morning from the hospital, and I sort of needed a cigarette. They let me out, and I ran, and I went to this bridge, and went onto the edge of this bridge, and that's where we met. That's when Neil approached me and stood next to me.
Rode up on my horse and not quite. So at that time, I just started working in London. So I grew up in Watford, Hertfordshire, and I started working as a personal trainer. And I was working in Covent Garden, Virgin Active Health Club, Virgin? Yeah, so. And my daily walk was over Waterloo Bridge every morning. And I was really new to the job actually. I was only been there a month, and it was just a normal Monday morning as far as I was concerned. So I'm working over Waterloo Bridge and saw Jonny. It was just obviously the most bizarre sight. Somebody sitting on the edge of a bridge, and you just don't see that. Like, I hadn't seen that before. So lots and lots of people walking past, and I got the opportunity to just say, "Hi, mate, are you okay?" And which obviously is a split-second decision, because you're like, "Is that okay? Should I do that?" Nobody else was, so you kind of think maybe I should keep walking as well. And but no, I did. I said, "Are you okay?" And that's where our relationship began. That very day, we spoke for like 30 minutes on Waterloo Bridge, and we connected. We just connected. Jonny was telling me about like where he grew up, but like later on, once he sort of warmed up to me, right? And we found out that we grew up really close to one another. So me being from Watford, Jonny grew up in Harrow, so that was cool, and we talked about that. And essentially, like, I said, "Can we go for a coffee? We sit down, talk about it," because I couldn't keep talking on the edge of this bridge forever and ever. And we were about to go for a coffee. Jonny had stepped down from the bridge, and I actually can remember just like not the day that I had in front of me just completely drifted away. Like, I was like, I really want to sit down, really want to continue this conversation. Very long story short, the police intervened, and that was they took Jonny, and I just carried on to work, and I thought that was it. And then it was 6 years later that Jonny reached out to find me. And
but you were called Mike.
I was called Mike. I mean, and obviously, like, Jonny, there's a lot that happened for Jonny.
Yeah.
Obviously during that time, and me. Don't know if you want to.
Yeah, well, firstly, I think that interaction on the bridge. It was such a sort of powerful interaction. It was really. It was really like sounds really like simple, but it was really sort of human. And in the hospital where I was, there was a lack of sort of humanness, if that makes sense. I don't know. Just this was the first time someone had really listened, like no judgment, and no sort of like, we need to do this, you need to do this, just listen, just really listen. And I think the key thing was him saying to me, just very like simply, he was like, "Mate, you'll get better, you'll be fine." And again, like in the hospital, they were saying, "Well, we don't know what's going to happen to you," and just hearing, those words, "You'll be all right, you'll get better." I know it sounds really simple, but for me, I think that's why I needed someone to, but someone to really believe it, and he did, and getting better was not was not an easy process. Not that I'm cured, but getting to a place where I think acceptance was a big thing, and finally talking about it. I was so embarrassed. Like all this stuff had happened in my head, or was going on in my head, and the diagnosis. I was struggling with my sexuality, so there was so much that was going on, and it took me years to finally like really get comfortable with that and accept and start talking. And when I finally like started talking, that's when decided to launch this campaign to find Neil. I was working for a mental health charity at the time called Rethink Mental Illness. And I told them my story, and they were the ones that said to me, have you ever thought of trying to find this guy? And I was like, it seemed impossible, because yeah, it felt like looking for a needle in a haystack because he could be anywhere. Do you know what I mean? Like, we didn't swap details on the bridge, so how are we going to find it? But amazingly, like through social media, like it just took off. This campaign, this Find Mike campaign, just took off, and the most amazing thing was we had in a few days we had 38 people come forward saying, I think it was me that helped you on the bridge.
Yeah.
Which just blew our minds. Like,
Yeah.
the most like incredible thing is that these people had stopped someone on a bridge in London around that time.
That's amazing.
It's amazing, isn't it? All these so we call them like silent heroes, like people like Neil, like, you know, just, I mean, cities like London, you know, people are so in their own worlds and just rushing, and no one's got time for each other, but they do, you know, these people, it's just amazing.
So with 38 people who'd talked someone off of Waterloo Bridge around that time, a man
Yeah.
So that's like alarming in lots of ways as well, isn't it?
I know.
Like, that was happening,
Yeah.
but it's heartening that 38 people thought that they'd saved you.
Well, you know, what's bizarre as well is, I mean, I've been working in London since 2007 through to now, so you know that's 12 years, right? And it is so common. Yeah, I've never actually seen anybody else, but we know it happens all the time.
Yeah, right.
And so, I mean, it's almost, I can't quite believe it, because like we know lots of other people in our network who have, you know, taught people off bridges or seen, and you know, and now
What do you mean that you've met since you've become active in mental health?
Exactly.
Championing, or whatever you call your job.
And now they're, yeah, what is that? Like, just, I don't know. Yeah, it's bizarre, you know, what we're doing now and where it all came from. But a lot of those people, I mean, there's more awareness now, right? So they know I should go because it's in the media and stuff. But yeah, like I've never seen, you know, so I don't know if I'd be any good at it again.
Of course you would, man.
No, but I mean,
it's that kindness in your heart. That's what did it. Like that ain't going anywhere.
No, it's so prevalent. I mean, I guess just to frame the conversation, if people don't know, it's still the biggest killer of men in this country, right? Suicide, and quite a lot of men go to bridges, right? So, but yeah, it's 38 people.
Yeah.
But yeah, he didn't come forward for. He kept us waiting for what was it, 2 weeks before he finally came forward.
So I wasn't questions like what? First of all, what did you have to say to the 37 people who weren't your saviour? How did you let them down?
Well, no, well, I see. I the charity that I was working with spoke to them all. Like
they tried
to, yeah. We just basically took their accounts of what had happened, and they were just different to my accounts. So we were like, look, it's not the same.
Could you remember what
person.
you looked like and stuff like that?
See, only when we were eventually reunited did it all like come back to me, and that was just unbelievable. But once like we got into like the second week of the campaign, we were just like, well, he would have come forward by now, you know, if he wanted to be found, and you know, maybe he doesn't want to be found, and that's fine, you know, or maybe he doesn't. We just kind of accepted that was the way it was, but yeah, he took his time.
So then, what was it like from your end? Like, how did you? What did you see? Where you're like, hang on a minute, that's me. Like, what happened?
No, I missed the whole campaign. I didn't see any of it. So it was through the power of social media, we were talking about before we got on here. Like, and ironically, I'm kind of off social media now, which is how I manage a lot of my own mindfulness and stuff, which we'll talk about later. But I wasn't on. Funny enough, I don't think I was even on Facebook. I was in 2014 when we talked. I wasn't, no, but it was my fiance Sarah. At the time, she was my fiance. She's now my wife, right?
Congratulations.
And cheers. And we were boyfriend and girlfriend when I had the conversation with Jonny on the bridge, right? So she'd known the story from the beginning. You know, I'd spoken to her about it, and she saw this Find Mike campaign on Facebook, and she was like, that's Neil, and she called me up, and I was at home, and she was just like, the guy that you spoke to 6 years ago on Waterloo Bridge, so completely out of the blue, you know, 6 years later, completely out of the blue. And it just completely blew my mind. I mean, I was just like, wow, you know, it always really stuck with me, the conversation we'd had, you know, because I was in a good place. Obviously, I remember everything about Jonny, like his mannerisms, everything, like what he looked like and everything. And
so you must have been wondering all that time if he'd been okay.
I had thought, had he gone back, had he taken his life, and those sorts of things.
Yeah.
And always, it sounds funny, I'd remembered the conversation quite fondly, because I actually thought by the time he'd stepped off the bridge and we were about to go for a coffee, we actually had a really good connection. Yeah. And Jonny disagrees, but I say we would have been mates when we were at school.
Right.
But he's like, no, we wouldn't. I still don't know why.
Yeah, because I was like a SWAT at school. Nothing wrong with that, but like I was a SWAT. I was A grade student. I was like top of the class, whereas you were.
I got
not so much.
I bunked off. I got nearly suspended for like they found a joint in my pocket. And, you know,
yeah.
I wasn't a bad. You know, school was like an episode of the Beano comic. You know, Bash Street Kids.
Yeah.
That was like.
That was you.
That was me. Right.
Causing trouble.
Yeah. No, you know, everyone was causing trouble. But anyway, I thought because we connected on the bridge, we'd actually, and we're about to go for a coffee, so yeah, I actually thought quite fondly of the conversation. For me...
But I guess you weren't in a traumatised state that day, which is like, it would have been really hard for your brain to take any of that information in, like what he looks like
or name.
So you did get each other's name, but you didn't remember it, or... You think that never came up?
I don't think I remembered your name was... Like, when I saw on the Facebook post, Jonny, maybe it started coming back.
Yeah.
So we did meet... So it was through Sarah, my girlfriend, fiancée, wife, the only one ever, the wonderful Sarah, that we were reunited, which is, again, when you think about it, that's bizarre, right, in its own kind of... and saw that on Facebook... I reached out to the charity, there was a lot of back and forth, and then they reunited us, and basically Jonny's just followed me around since. Or is it the other way around? Maybe I followed you around. And I tell you, it's just been like, we would always think, there was a lot of press around the story, and I was like, I don't know anything about mental health at all. And charity, Rethink Mental Illness, was saying, well, there's some buzz around this campaign, right? Jonny was already a mental health campaigner, and they said, can you guys go on TV together? Here's the statistics, here's the headlines, here's what to say, here's what not to say. And I was kind of like, yeah, this is really exciting. But mainly and it went on for a couple of weeks. Mainly it was just because I was really intrigued by Jonny, and I just wanted to be like, right, another chance to spend the afternoon with Jonny, find about this guy. You know, it was a bit kind of voyeuristic, you know, it was weird, like, you know, we had this chat and now there's this whole campaign. So that was how I started, you know, to get into mental health. And that's continued for the past 5 years, obviously, twists and turns and evolutions. And that's how I joined Jonny. Jonny was already an active campaigner, and that's how I ended up getting into this now, which is what we do together. What Jonny does, what I do.
And now you run charity together, you've got your own foundation.
Yeah, that's really exciting. Like,
your own conference, like
particularly I'm really, because the charity I could talk about all day. Not the charity, but the reason. It's all about young people, and like that's where it starts, you know.
He's going to talk for 20 minutes.
Talk, man, that's what we're here for.
Well, we know we've just come from a school, and you know, some of the young people that we were talking to, I mean, you know, they come to us at the end. Whenever we do school talks at schools, you know, we have like groups of pupils come up to us, and like it's really heartbreaking, some of the things that, you know, for the first time they open up, and you know, the tears come, and all this stuff they've been holding on to, and so it breaks my heart, because there needs to be so much more help and support and the whole education. Well, yeah, they're just it doesn't make sense because we know that 3/4 of all mental health issues start in adolescence. So why is it not more of a priority and focus? It doesn't make sense. So our charity is all about getting stuff into schools and colleges and universities, and like the youth justice system where people are just like chucked out. Getting it in early and getting help and support early because young people are waiting and there's that stigma and there's so much that we need to do. So it's really exciting. I think we can hopefully make a difference with the charity, Beyond Shame, Beyond Stigma. I want to make a real and not just young people but like families. We talk to so many families who are, my parents like didn't have a clue like when I was diagnosed where to go, who to turn to, how to get support for themselves, and teachers as well. We see so many teachers struggling, so we want to just help everyone involved in young people and supporting them.
Amazing. What an amazing story that do you know what I mean, just the amount of richness in that narrative, like even just from the very beginning when you told us that you were diagnosed age 20 and then you ended up in a hospital. There's so many questions from me. Do you feel like the atmosphere you were describing of no positivity, no one telling you you're going to be okay? Do you feel like things will have changed since then? If someone gets taken into an establishment now?
Do you know what? And this is another kind of thing with mental health treatment. It's so varied. You might go to one hospital in one town and it's great, but then the next town they won't have any beds, or there'll be a lack of staff, or the treatment will just be really poor. It's such a postcode lottery wherever you go for mental health treatment. So it just depends. But I mean, I've been into quite a few hospitals, as an inpatient, because I've had relapses over the years, so I have to go back into hospital. And but again, it's the humanness, it's the humanness, if the human, just. I was giving a talk yesterday to a group of nurses, and sometimes it's just the smallest things that make the biggest difference. It's just a smile, when you're walking down the corridor, or just someone coming in and to your room and being what book you reading, or what were you up to? Just that human quality. And I say to doctors and put down the clipboards. Do you know what I mean? Actually talk and listen to your patients, because I don't know, I see that so often. So on a scale of 1 to 10, and I get they have to do that, but then put down the clipboard and really listen and let them talk and don't judge and I see that sometimes missing. I mean, I feel like I'm criticising. I don't mean. I mean, there's some amazing people out there, amazing people, but sometimes, I just feel there could be more. Connectedness, humanness. Again, I keep on using humanness in the system. Yeah.
Hey guys, if you just joined us, this is episode 9 of We Are Listening, which is a monthly live stream where we talk about mental health. And today I have Neil and Jonny from, let me get the name of your foundation right, Beyond Shame, Beyond Stigma. And I also wanted to talk to you about your conference, This Can Happen, which is how I kind of was able to reach out to you guys. Do you want to tell us about how that kind of came about and what it's all about?
Cool. So the documentary of our story came out in 2015, and that was Channel 4 documentary called Stranger on the Bridge. And it pretty soon after that documentary, we were getting contacted by various companies, right? Because I didn't know this at all, I didn't know this world at all. So companies love to bring in people to tell stories, right, for their staff. And so, as you know, right, because you did that as well.
I did loads of that.
Okay, so I'll probably learn a lot from you today. So completely untrained, right? Completely, raw and unpolished. Our first talk was, I think our first talk together was we were doing a talk for an NHS trust, and Jonny had already booked in. He said, "Do you want to come to do it? They're going to pay a bit of money. It's quite cool." I was like, "You know what? Okay, fine." It's a bit of an experiment.
Were you still working in fitness?
Still doing fitness. Yeah, still doing fitness. I said, "Yeah, I'd love to." And we drove up there, and Jonny, I was driving, Jonny had the laptop, and we were literally putting it together on the way. Like, he was like putting images of me in there. I was like, what do I say? And, you know, actually we delivered it, and it went down really, really well. I didn't know, I was really nervous, like I would feel nauseous, and that was kind of like the very start, really. And actually, just on that note, that specific mental health trust, which was in Grimsby in the north of England, completely unrelated. We went to a university still 2 years later, and the young lady who was head of the Students' Mental Health Network, who put that talk on at that university, was an inpatient and in the audience at that first talk that we gave 2 years before. Wow. You know, and she said, I saw that talk, I listened to Jonny talk about his mental health, I heard about the interaction on the bridge, and it really, you know, inspired me to keep going with my, you know, obviously one small part, she had clinicians, but I just thought that was, you know, that nails in the worthwhileness of kind of getting out there and talking. So anyway, we get contacted by banks and law firms and all sorts of weird and other wonderful places, and after going so many places, kind of realised, well, you know what, like if there's a way that we can just create a platform where we can get people, companies, you know, to talk about it themselves, because obviously, you know, companies have a different set of issues in dealing with problems than the NHS does, than the schools does. So we wanted to try and create something that companies would engage with to do it, and that's how we met, because you came along to that, and that's quite a new thing, and it's, you know, going to be ongoing. And you know, we still go into a lot of places, and companies, schools, universities, and we use the story that we've just described to set the scene, and now, you know, talk about, if we're in a company, we try and shed some light about what we've seen, like what are people doing to look after their staff, their employees, their well-being. If we go into a school, try and talk about, you know, well, how can two kids who don't know anything about mental health and, you know, are ashamed to talk up, you know, how can they connect and look after each other? You know, like Jonny said, nurses, you know, stretch for time, resources, how can they connect with patients? So we try to share the collective experience that we've heard and learned from talking to the staff or the people who work in those organisations or the people who use those organisations, you know, to get support themselves, you know. So that's all it is. It's pretty much just finding any excuse to share that information. And I got an email from you after the conference, because Jonny couldn't make it. Actually, you weren't well at the time, which is just a reality of things. So I was holding the fort. And I got an email from you like, hi Neil, and I came, and we didn't get a chance to connect on the day, and I was like, wow, this is interesting. He's a beatboxer, he's worked with Ed Sheeran, like, he's Jewish, Jonny's Jewish, that's cool, we need to connect. So like, we talked on the phone, and then the next day, or a couple of days later, I was having lunch with Jonny and his dad, and I was like, so I've got to tell you about this really interesting guy that I just had a chat with on the phone. And that's when I showed Jonny your belly dancer video, and here we are, and so actually we've got a little bit to learn about you, and as well still, which I'm completely intrigued about, as well.
Well, I think it's I'm enjoying just hearing you guys talk about this, because I can see, like, you have told that story before. Obviously, it's now a thing, like, and then that's kind of what's sort of been happening to me. Like, I decided to be open about my own mental health the beginning of last summer, and I'd never really told anyone, like, before that. Like, only my partner really knew, not even like friends, and definitely not fans. And but I'd stopped touring. I'd spent my whole adult life on the road. Like, I wouldn't go a week without a show since I left home. And I'm 35 now, so I've done a lot of shows and a lot of kind of whirlwind lifestyle. And when I decided to cancel all my work so I could write an album, which was a really brave thing to do, even though looking back it was slightly insane. And then, yeah, the insanity followed because I didn't have any distraction anymore. I didn't have... Like, when you're on the road, and this is something that I've kind of been remembering this last couple of weeks, because I've just started going back out on the road for the first time properly in a couple of years. So in the last week, we did 12 shows in 8 days. And when you're on the road, it's the craziest highs and the craziest lows all at once. But you have this thing where it's like, it doesn't matter, because tomorrow there's going to be literally a queue of people, literally telling me how great I am. So like, there's going to be a high. Do you know what I mean? And that is not sustainable for your brain. Like, what you're asking your mind to do in terms of like physically what you're trying to do, it's like the kind of waves of like dopamine and the different endorphins that you get released when you, which you guys must have experienced now. You must have had those talks where you're just like on top of the world and you just feel so empowered, and then inevitably that isn't going to last forever. You're going to feel some pain afterwards. But I'd kept that going for so long that when I finally stopped, my mind just gave out on me. It was just like, I can't. And you know, I didn't get as far as getting up on a bridge, but I got into it's hard, I still find it hard to find the language, but I guess it's the suicidal place. Like, I didn't want to live anymore, and I didn't feel safe, and I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to do with myself, and I couldn't write any more music, and I couldn't go anywhere, and that realization and that honesty I could give myself was so empowering, because then once I could explain it to my partner, and then a doctor, and then a therapist, and then I found out a whole lot about why I'd been on the road the whole time, why I'd been running the whole time, like why I never felt like I could stop. And it turned out I had PTSD and a whole bunch of other issues that hadn't been dealt with since childhood, and having worked through that, I just felt like this music I'd been making was all about that story, and if I didn't kind of open up about that, I just felt like I couldn't progress with the music. I couldn't.
Do you almost feel like you weren't being true? Or?
Exactly, I couldn't just be like, and I don't know, it's difficult because I've seen artists who've written songs where I'm listening to it, I'm like, that's about anxiety, that song's about a panic attack, and then I've seen them be interviewed, and they're like, what's the song about? They're like, oh, you know, it's abstract, it's up to you to interpret, which is, you know, I fully respect that, but I've always been quite a kind of open, you know, heart on my sleeve kind of person, so I just felt like I wouldn't be able to do it, and I'd actually feel less safe if I didn't just be open. And then I did, I just opened up about it. I launched my album with a crowdfunding campaign, and I was like, guys, I'll tell you something, I've been having a hideous time, and I hadn't told anyone, and I'm really sorry that I haven't told you. And then, yeah, my world changed. But then, like, that's it. So that's why I was kind of interested to talk to you guys as people who've done that, you know, years ago, you know, said we want to have a conversation about mental health. We are making it okay. Because the minute I did that, I just got swept down. Honestly, I got hundreds and hundreds of messages. I still get them every day.
Well,
really.
And at first it was overwhelming, but now it's like normal.
Something, you know, I don't know where we'll go off on a conversation, but I mean, look, thank you for sharing, because I never assumed that you have an audience and they may have heard of that before, that story. I don't disclose about mental health, right? So for a long time, when we first started talking to people, we were doing a lot with charities, Mind, Rethink Mental Illness, Samaritans, NHS Trusts, and a lot of the people, and there were other people talking, like Jonny, right, who lived experience. And I don't, you know, what I do kind of need to admit is that, you know, there was a definite almost like imposter syndrome after a while, kind of like, hold on a minute, I don't have a mental health diagnosis, right? Not saying I haven't dealt with stuff, but yeah. And you do question your own credibility. And like you said, you know, we'd experience, you know, people coming up and after talks, and sometimes they'd be accused of people because so many people have been affected, right? Now, you know, so you deal with that, and we did travel a lot. And I think part of the workplace stuff as well was because you know, there are a bunch of other people who did not necessarily have mental health issues, but their job role was to support other people. And even just thinking about it now, I think, you know, I needed to find a place where I wasn't feeding my own imposter syndrome, right? Because, you know, it's so great and amazing, like today we went to this school and we did a talk and young children were opening up and they're opening about their mental health issues, and you can feel like sometimes a bit, well, I don't have this experience, so why would people listen to me? And you know, I see Jonny talk, and his place and his ownership is really something that he, you know, and you do, like, you wrestle with that because you're kind of like, should I even be now, you know, and sorry, so that also was kind of the reason why that whole event took place, you know, because I needed to find a space as well where I could say, well, I'm with other people who don't have mental health diagnoses, but they're having to do stuff. So that was, and all the stuff you talked about, you know, we've travelled, haven't we? Like, and you know, it's hard, isn't it? What's your identity? Why are you doing this? What's the passion? What's the purpose? What, you know, all of that stuff.
Can I just say though, like, we came out of the school today, and I say this every time we go to a school. Neil is like amazing with the kids. Like, I'll never forget. There was one school that we went to, and massive queue afterwards, and this one young guy had queued up for like an hour to finally get to the front of the line, and all he did was he was like, "Mate," he said to Neil, "I just want to shake your hand," and that was it.
Yeah.
I mean, like, he queued up for an hour because, like, you know,
he waited patiently behind.
He was,
you know,
but that speaks volumes, though, doesn't it? Like, you know, like, and every time, like, we went, like, I came out of the school today, and because he, like, you know, it's not just about me and my lived experience. It's about, obviously, what Neil calls it, you know, being an ally. You know, we need those allies. You know, yeah, he underestimates himself and how amazing he is, like, talking to the young people who come forwards and
continue, please.
carry on, bring it.
No, but I always say that to him because, you know, talking about the imposter syndrome, but
that has come up actually on this stream quite a few times where people feel like, oh, like, I think pretty much everyone I've met is like, oh, well, mine isn't that bad. Like, so other people that suffer worse than me, and it's like. And then you feel like you're not qualified to help people, or you feel like maybe you've misled them, or I don't know. I struggled with that a whole lot. I was really worried before I kind of spoke up about what I'd been through, that people would think I was doing it for attention or for sympathy. Yeah. Because, like, I mean, there's a part of me that was doing that. Do you know what I mean? I'm not ashamed to say it. But, like, I also was like, well, my life wasn't that. You know, I've lived a really privileged life. Like, I can't sit there and just go, woe is me. Do you know what I mean?
I get that, like especially when I'm giving talks like doctors and like yesterday, like psychologists. I'm like, well, because I feel like I feel, you know, I'm really lucky because I'm here, you know, and I've got amazing friends and family. I've got a lot of support and a lot of love, and, you know, I've been able to kind of get an insight into my head. And we meet so many people that, you know, are really, really suffering and struggling. And there's a feeling of guilt. I feel a lot of guilt. Like, like, why me? Like, why? Like, what's so special about me? Why should I be doing this? Like, there's a feeling of just, I don't know, just. What's the word? Inferiority. You know, like, especially when you're talking to.
You have it too. It's like, you know, we're learning right here. You know. Like.
But this is a theme that I've noticed. It's like, and then if you want to support other people, like, you don't necessarily have to have been through hell to be able to help someone else. Like, you guys are perfect case in point. And also, like. You use a language that you haven't had a mental health diagnosis, but, like, we all have mental health. It's like saying I haven't had a physical health diagnosis, so I can't relate. Of course you can, like, do you know what I mean?
Well, yeah, because I'm being very cryptic, because, of course, like, there's stuff where, I mean, I'm a 36-year-old guy. I, like many other men, right, are conditioned not to talk about things that you find embarrassing, not,
right.
you know, and you hold that in, and so it's we talk about mental health, so you know, I'm not going to say I haven't had a mental health issue, because actually, as you said, we all have mental health, we carry it around with us, you know, and you can experience stuff that, especially when you're growing up, especially when you're younger, you know, you question things like, why am I here? What am I doing? And just life can be very difficult. And there's an acute side where you would be like, right, I need to sit in front of a clinician. I need to reach out and actually go and get some help, you know. I've done that, like, you know, family. Like, if I've struggled, but I haven't had to cross that barrier of, you know. So that's how, when I talk to an audience, you know, I'm sort of saying, I don't know if they get it or not, but you actually, again, it just shows how sensitive you are to the subject and your own intuition, which is really good, because not a lot of people would pick that up, you know. So that's.
I think it's interesting, like, because you have got what I would say really healthy boundaries, because you're confident to talk about mental health. You've made a whole mission out of it, but you know what you want to disclose. You know you've got that language of what you're comfortable with. You acknowledge that you've been through some stuff, but it's, you know, that's really strong. And for me, that was probably one of the hardest things about deciding to be open, was working out where my boundaries were, because the very first time I told anyone about it was when I was trying to approach a doctor, and the very first thing I did was try and phone a helpline, and it was such a big deal to just dial the number. I was shaking. It took me 3 nights of attempting to do it, and then no one answered, which was just really brutal. And I was like, right, well, I'll email. And I wrote this email. Honestly, it was pages long. It was like my whole life story.
Wow. Was that like cathartic to get that out?
It was a big step, really big step, just to write it all down, all the stuff I was worrying about. And then, do you know what I did?
Oh no!
I deleted it all, and I was just like, I'm struggling with depression and anxiety. I think I need some help, and I just sent that. That's all I needed to send. Do you know what I mean? But all of that, boiling it down and finding your language and your vocabulary is hard, but it's a really huge step to take. And like, do you know what I mean about those boundaries? You've got that there. Have you found that through the years of working with Jonny? Like, you kind of found where
we've got a very, you know, certain people. We have a profile, yeah. So because we talk about mental health, and some of it switches over into the public, and some of it's very, if you're in mental health, people will know who we are, right? And then, but I always assume if they're not in mental health, they won't know who we are. That's not always the case. You know, we've had a documentary, and we've travelled, and Jonny's book's out, and we've done stuff with the Royals, and you know. So, where am I going? Where's my consciousness? I've lost it. So boundaries and our relationship, right? So and obviously we've had to like go from 0 to 100, and we've both learnt, you know, off each other a lot around, you know. I think this relationship is really interesting. Like, off screen, it's fascinating. You know, you could write 5 books about our. You're looking at me like.
Well, no, because I haven't got any boundaries. That's the thing.
No, so he doesn't. Yeah.
I literally no boundaries.
You just like, no holds barred. Just, this is me. Have it all.
Yeah, and I mean, I've got myself into some interesting situations, but it's not just boundaries about my stuff, but other people's stuff as well. Like, the first time I started doing this, on Twitter, this young girl got in touch, and she was like, "Oh, can I have your number?" And I gave her my number, and then we were messaging a lot, and I was trying to help her, but then she turned around one day and she texted me. She was like, "I need to come and live with you, because I have to leave my home," and I was living with my parents at the time, and I was like, "Oh my God, I'm living with my parents, like, I don't know if I can have you." And she was like, "Oh, I can't believe this, like, I thought you were there to support me." And I was like, yeah, just incredible guilt, because like, you know, I should have, well, it's just so hard, isn't it? Because
you wanted to support that person.
Yeah, you want to, and it's so hard. Like, today, when you know, young guy, like a young guy came up to us and he burst into tears after the school, and like. Sort of, you know, you want to put your arms around them, and I was like, sort of, trying to hop, like, but then it's like, am I like, again, because of this world that we live in, it's like, you, in your head, you're like, is that the right, it's a young, like, should I be doing?
Don't touch the children.
Yeah,
well, yeah, but that's seriously,
It's
it's so, like, sort of messes with your mind about these boundaries, or messes with my mind about, what the boundaries, and it's so hard, isn't it? Because, and so my boundaries are just, I'll give. Do you know what I mean? Mm. And then, so you said this today actually, and it's something we say a lot. Is, you know, on aeroplanes when you do the safety checks, and they say, you know, when the oxygen mask drops down, you know, put your oxygen mask on before you put anyone else's, even kids. And I've always been like, well, surely you put the kids on first. They're the most important. But you know, the thing is, how can you help someone else if you haven't helped yourself first and put the oxygen mask on first? And yeah, it's I like that sort of analogy. I don't always apply it to myself, but I do like it about, you know, you've got to, I try, it's so hard because, you know, you feel selfish when, I feel selfish when, you know, I'm like putting myself first and, you know, taking care of my own mental health. Like, if there's someone else in the same situation as me, like really, in a really bad place, I'll go straight onto them and like, do you know what I mean? Whereas I know maybe the better thing is to like help myself, but
it's hard to get a balance, isn't it? Because obviously, like, you could even worry, or I sometimes worry, that you'd be obsessed with helping other people, but then that could actually end up being a nice big distraction from your own pain. Do you know what I mean? And like, I've been warned about that. And just trying to find that vocabulary and those boundaries. Like at the moment, I'm working on this TED Talk, which I'm doing next month, and it's all about. It's called "Social Media Save Me from Suicide," and it's kind of just. It feels really like big and important, and a lot of it is me just trying to figure out. Okay, well, what is it I'm prepared to say? Because it tells a story of how after I'd opened up, I woke up one day to a bunch of trolling, basically on Twitter, from someone who said it was my own fault, and I should see how low I'd stooped and stuff like this. And then so then when that happened, that really spun me out, and I kind of was very quickly back to a place where I was like, I don't know if I can carry on living. But part of it was just blaming myself. Like, I just felt like, you idiot, like, you've made yourself so vulnerable so that people now can take a shot at you. Even to the point, like, sometimes when I've been out doing shows, like, people want to talk to me, and the guy come up to me and he's like, oh, mate, well, it's really great what you've been doing about mental health, and like my partner got up and walked off one day, and I don't know where she is, and that was like a year ago, and it's been really bad, and it's been bad for you, hasn't it? Because you wanted to kill yourself, didn't you? And I was just like, I wasn't ready for him to say that. Do you know what I mean? I was at a gig, like, so it's just like things like that. Once you've put yourself out there, you can't take it back. And like, I feel like, in the interest of encouraging a conversation and encouraging vulnerability and encouraging supporting each other, like, how do we make sure that we're all doing that responsibly and safely and in a way that doesn't put ourselves at risk? Do you know what I mean?
It's such a hard... Can I say though, with the troll, so I, just before we were about to launch the campaign to find Mike, Neil, I started getting trolled on YouTube. I make YouTube vlogs, and
oh god, YouTube commenters are the worst.
They really are. They really are. Like, I like music videos. Like, if I watch a music video, I don't know why, I always go to the comments and they're, this person's better than that person, this person sucks, this person, it's so... so I started getting trolled around that time, and it was really nasty, like really personal attacks, and I was like, I don't know if I can do this. But then, and at first I started to respond, I felt like I needed to, you know, justify you know, myself. But then I stopped responding because I was advised to don't. Yeah. But then, like 4 or 5 months later, got in touch. This troll got in touch and was like, "I'm sorry, like I was going through a really bad time in my mental health, and I saw you on YouTube, and you looked like you were doing well, and that was so interesting." Like I was like, but it's hard. It's so hard because, whenever I get trolled, it's just like. Just sort of want to retreat, just absolutely retreat. And yeah, again, there's that feeling of blaming myself. Like I've been too vulnerable. I shouldn't have shared this. I've done, but you know, you got to think about all the other people you have helped and you have touched, and that troll might be suffering themselves, and you know,
certainly. Like, and the thing is, I could see that. Like, even when it happened, I was like, because I've had online hate before, but it hadn't been personal. Just been like, oh, Beardy Man's a better beatboxer or whatever, and it's like, I don't know. This really hurt me, but I could see it was someone who was suffering. I could see in the words.
Actually a better beatboxer than you?
Beardy Man?
Yeah.
Well, that's joke. He's way better than me. He's way better than me. But yeah, like, even though you know it's someone who's in pain and who probably needs the hug more than the hate, like, it doesn't stop it hurting you, does it?
But I think one of the things that really has sort of, I don't know, like helped shift my perspective on things is doing work in prisons. You know, I don't know if you've ever been into. I've
done work with kids in like units. And,
okay.
And yeah, I've never gone into an actual prison.
It's just, you know, when you listen to their stories, and they might have done things like murdered people, but you listen to, and I'm not sort of condoning what they've done, but when they get really deep into like what the hell they've gone through, and you know, like I don't know, it's now like, yeah, I try and sort of question everything. So you know, when someone trolls me, I'm like, well, what is going on? What is really going on with that person? And yeah, where, and yes, it does, it really hurts, but how much hurt is going on in them that they're, you know, firing this out? And I don't know, yeah, for me going into prisons and hearing their stories, I don't know if that makes, that sort of has made me think a lot about, you know, why people do things, you know, people's motives for doing bad things, you know,
destructive things.
Yeah,
I think you're right around boundaries, because it's a protective mechanism. It can be, and I genuinely think that I know it's so like with me and Jonny. I just definitely know that our brains are wired differently. You know, my instinct is to throw up a boundary, right? Because you know that is, for whatever reason, the journey has been so far. Put up a boundary, protect yourself, because then you're in the best place to, feel good and help other people. And your instinct is to go, you know, to not do that. And both have downsides and good sides. And, you know, actually something I learned, and I don't know where I learned it, but obviously I wouldn't have done if we hadn't have had that conversation on the bridge and we were on this journey, that... you know, a diagnosis like schizophrenia, schizoaffective disorder, is also like, there's a big correlation between people's inhibitions in life, right? And that, so I don't call it creativity or what you want, like, so just it makes complete sense to me, that because I know that, because I've read it somewhere, I've seen, you know, that you will say something often with less inhibition about, actually, I know you say that you care what people think about you a lot more than I do, but in certain circumstances you're very quick to actually dismiss your inhibitions and say what you feel. And I think, wow, that's so interesting, because do you know what, that actually makes you the person you are, and the diagnosis and everything is a whole, you know, I don't separate, you know, well, you're a person and you either have good mental health or diagnosis or you don't. It's like, for me, it's everything, and one would feed into the other. It makes absolute sense, given the person that you are. You're, in a lot of circumstances, your lack of inhibition, that of course you have schizoaffective disorder. It makes complete sense. Or you could put it the other way around. The fact that you have schizoaffective disorder means that you have less... It doesn't matter which way you frame it, because one's not more important than the other. It's the person you are. And actually, the fact that I don't have a mental health diagnosis, and I'm more guarded, I've got more barriers up sometimes, that makes complete sense. You know, because you know, talking about mental health, kind of diving down the rabbit hole, listening to clinicians, listening to people with lived experience, well, what you end up doing is essentially you end up just building your own relationship with mental health. What does it mean to you? How do you perceive how do other people have their own relationship with it? That's completely your perception, you know. And that's the only way to really understand this thing that for a lot of people is really scary. It's kind of weird because it's happened by accident, right? So if we hadn't talked on that bridge and the subsequent events hadn't have happened, I would never be exploring my mental health, my perception of other people's mental health, you know. So it's just like, it completely blows my mind that I've been blessed to kind of go down this rabbit hole, you know, and sort of have these conversations, because that's what it's all about, isn't it? It's about
I love
life,
it.
your
I
tapestry of life.
love both of your energies and your positivity and how much you'll give it back to the world. It's awesome. Guys, if you have enjoyed anything these guys have had to say on today's episode of We're Listening, please feel free to ask any questions or comments, or share the word, or follow their example and be there for someone else, or talk about something you've been through, or share a truth of your own, because I feel like that is what brings us all together and makes this world safer. Yeah. If people want to know more about what you guys are doing, where can they find out about it?
So go shoot.
Onto our charity website, Beyond Shame, Beyond Stigma. Onto our, you've got the This Can Happen website.
Yeah, This Can Happen TCH events, which is all about workplace stuff. There is what else? God, we do so
You've
much.
got your book.
We do so much for so little. So much for so little. We tried to condense. So yeah, your book.
Stranger on the Bridge is now a book.
Yeah, he's in it.
And so is
they saved the best till last.
Prince William wrote the introduction. Is that right?
I know. Yeah, it's really cool. Yeah.
Cool.
There's loads of stuff online. Yeah.
I mean, we used to be really good on social media. We used to keep up to, like, we would have, everything. We would have been like, we're here, we're there, for, you know, the messaging, you know, getting it out there. That we've actually had to kind of, I think it's just been a conscious choice not to.
Yeah.
But you know, there is some social media. You know, if you just type Johnny Benjamin, Neil Aborn, but don't expect a response, because that's just a personal choice. Like, you know, my accounts are dormant. You know, so they're there. So if anybody was to write a message on social media, you know, get a reply, don't be offended. It's just, I'm just kind of holding that there.
It's time, because we're so busy. Like, you just there's just a constant influx of emails because of the work that we do, the talks, the conference, the charity, all the stuff we do. So you're dealing with constant influx of emails. So doing the social media stuff, just time. It's time, I think.
It's something that we seem to talk about on every episode, like, and also because we're doing this on social media, so it's really relevant. But like, everyone who's come on here has had a different relationship with it, a love-hate relationship with it, and it's
an ethos of, I mean, very quickly about that, and again, don't mean it sound like an ego thing, but you know, people who have achieved great things in life, right, are written about. You know, if you go around telling everybody, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, trying to put if you just focus on your passion and you achieve something in your field, people will write about you. You will find out that you are on social media and you don't have to go on to, do you know what I mean? That's because you're trying to make a difference with a good intent, right? So that's what I tell myself. So I don't feel guilty about going on social media, you know. And I think if people want to be successful on social media, generally, just focus on what you're actually doing rather than being on it. Because if you're standing out from the crowd, achieving something, beatboxing, campaigning, whatever it is, people will write about you. You will end up on social media by default. So just get off your own, let other people do their thing. That's what I say.
Can I say on that note? I saw the musical Hamilton last night. Have you seen it?
No, I've heard it's amazing.
It's amazing, but it's all about this guy that Alexander Hamilton, whose story was untold for all these years, and now his story is like being told, and it's just I don't know. It just made me think a lot since I've seen that about, you know, the impact that you leave on the world. Like, Alexander Hamilton left a huge impact on the world, but his story was kind of written out of history for the last few centuries, and now he's back in there because of this musical, and it's just, you just never know what impact you're gonna leave on the world. And so I don't really have a final. I don't know.
A Jerry Springer moment.
Yeah, I don't know why. I did, but just about, you know. I don't know what I'm trying to say even. Just. I don't know. I don't know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. It's an interesting concept, nonetheless. You know, like it's wow. Yeah. No, you can. Every human action in the world is an infinite possibility for people to know about, whenever it happens, however it happens, and that's the magic in life. You know, I mean, I'm experiencing it, right? You know, we talked on a bridge. I thought that's it, and now we're here talking to you. This conversation is there. You know, your interaction led you there, and you know, and everything.
Yeah, and this, you know, people might watch this, and then who knows where it will. We talk about the ripple effect. You know, so someone might watch this, and then maybe they'll have an interaction, not necessarily on a bridge, but with someone else that will then change their life, and you know, that's what it's all about—the ripple effect, I think, and positive stuff. So, thank you for having us on. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Brilliant. Thanks for everything you've been doing to help save mankind. I think it's great. So, guys, thank you so much for tuning in and watching. We're listening. We are now an audio podcast as well, so you can check us out on any place that you listen to audio podcasts. Please leave a review, leave a comment, share this with anyone who you think would enjoy it. And yeah, thank you again for watching. I'm SK Shlomo. This is Neil and Jonny, and thank you for being here. Take care. Goodbye.